Captain Jake Morrison stood in front of the big screen that showed the galaxy map. The room was full of aliens from many different worlds. They all looked nervous and scared. Some had blue skin, others had multiple eyes, and a few looked like giant insects, but they all had one thing in common. They were all afraid. The map on the screen showed the entire known galaxy. It had bright colors marking where different alien races lived: green for the bird-like Zephyrians, blue for the water creatures called Aquarians, red for the rock people known as Terrans. But there was one large area that had no color at all. It was just black, empty space on the edge of the map. That black area was where humans lived. "We need to talk about the new exploration plans," said Counselor Vex, a tall alien with crystal-like skin. Her voice shook a little when she spoke. "All areas have been approved for exploration except ... She stopped talking and looked away from the map. Everyone in the room knew what she meant. They just did not want to say it out loud. "Except human space," Jake said in a calm voice. He was the only human in the room full of aliens. A blue-skinned alien named Carr stood up. He was sweating even though the room was cold. The humans asked for privacy. "We must respect their wishes," he said quickly. Jake smiled, but his eyes stayed serious. He knew the truth. Everyone in this room knew the truth. The aliens were not avoiding human space because they respected humans. They were avoiding it because they were terrified of it. Dr. Lisa Grant sat in the corner of the room. She was a human scientist who studied alien behavior. For months, she had been watching how the aliens acted when anyone mentioned human space. Their hearts would beat faster. They would start sweating. Some would even leave the room. "Maybe we should talk about the survey reports," Lisa said softly. The room became completely quiet. You could hear a pin drop. When exploration ships came back from other parts of the galaxy, they brought detailed reports. They had maps of new planets. They had samples of rocks and plants. They had videos of new alien creatures. The captains would give long presentations about what they found, but when ships came back from near-human space, something was different. The crews were quiet and strange. They would file very short reports that said almost nothing. Then they would ask to be sent somewhere else, anywhere else. As long as it was far away from human territory. Captain Ryan Burke had just returned from a mission near human space. He sat in the back of the room and said nothing. His hands shook slightly as he held his coffee cup. When other people asked him about his trip, he would change the subject quickly. "The humans are expanding very fast," Counselor Vex continued. She tried to sound normal, but her voice was tight with fear. "They are very good at building new colonies." Jake nodded. He had seen the human colonies himself when he patrolled the border areas. The human settlements were not just surviving. They were growing incredibly fast. What took other alien races hundreds of years to build, humans could finish in just a few decades. But that was not what scared the aliens. The real problem was something else. Something that no one wanted to talk about. As the meeting ended, Jake walked slowly through the hallways. He could hear the aliens whispering to each other in their own languages. Even though he had a translation device, some of the words did not translate properly. But he could understand enough to know they were scared. "They move too fast," whispered one alien to another. "Not like the others," said a third. "What they do to worlds is not natural," said a fourth. That night, Jake went to his private room and read the secret reports on his computer. The official reports talked about fast terraforming and aggressive expansion. These were the reports that the Galactic Council got to read, but there were other reports. Secret reports that never made it to the council meetings. These reports told a very different story. The humans were not just building colonies on new planets, they were changing the planets themselves. They were changing them in ways that other aliens could not understand. And everyone who saw what the humans were doing came back afraid to talk about it. Jake pulled up a file marked Top Secret. It contained reports from alien ships that had gotten too close to human space. One report was from a Zephyrian captain named Clef. "We approached the human colony on planet designation XK-47, the report said. From a distance, the planet looked normal. But as we got closer, our instruments started acting strange. The planet was not just habitable, it was perfect, too perfect. Jake scrolled down to read more. The atmosphere was exactly right for all known life forms. The temperature was ideal. The plant life was more diverse than anything we had ever seen. It was as if someone had taken a dead rock and turned it into paradise. In just a few years, another report came from an Aquarian exploration team. We detected energy readings that should not be possible. The entire planet was giving off some kind of field that made our equipment work better. Our ship's engines ran more efficiently. Our life support systems needed less power. Even our crew felt more alert and healthy. Jake leaned back in his chair and rubbed his temples. He had read dozens of reports like this, all from different alien crews, all describing the same impossible things. Human colonies were not just successful. They were changing the very nature of the planets they lived on. And somehow, these changes were spreading beyond the planets themselves. The most disturbing report came from a deep space monitoring station. It was located at the very edge of human territory. The alien crew had been watching human space for over a year. We have detected anomalous readings throughout the entire region, the report stated. Space itself appears different near human colonies. Quantum measurements show variations that should not exist. It is as if the fundamental laws of physics operate differently in human space. Jake closed the file and stared at the wall. Now he understood why the galactic map ended at human space. It was not because the area beyond was unknown or unexplored. It was because the area beyond was becoming something else entirely. The next morning, Jake attended another council meeting. This time the discussion was about trade routes. A holographic map showed the shipping lanes that connected different alien worlds. Jake noticed something strange. All of the trade routes curved around human space like water flowing around a rock. Ships would travel thousands of extra light years just to avoid getting too close to human territory. Why do the trade routes avoid Sector 12? Jake asked innocently. The room fell silent again. Counselor Vex shifted uncomfortably in her seat. There are navigational difficulties in that area, she said carefully. What kind of difficulties? Ships report instrument malfunctions when they get too close to human space, admitted Captain Zorn, a gruff alien with thick gray skin. Nothing dangerous, you understand. Just ... unusual readings that make navigation difficult. Jake knew this was only part of the truth. The real reason ships avoided human space was much more frightening than instrument malfunctions. The truth was that space itself was changing around human colonies. And no one knew what that meant for the rest of the galaxy. As Jake left the meeting, he made a decision. He was going to find out what was really happening in human space. Even if it meant discovering something that would change everything he thought he knew about his own species. The galactic map ended at human space for a reason. And Jake Morrison was going to find out what that reason was. Dr. Alex Ching could not sleep again. For the third night in a row, he lay in his bed staring at the ceiling of his research station. Strange dreams filled his mind whenever he tried to rest. Dreams of stars that moved in patterns like living things. Dreams of planets that sang to each other across the void of space. Alex worked on the biggest research station in the galaxy. The station, called New Horizon, was built to study how different alien races spread across the stars. Alex had spent 5 years looking at maps and data from hundreds of worlds. He thought he understood how civilizations grew and expanded, but lately nothing made sense anymore. Alex got out of bed and walked to his laboratory. The room was dark except for the glow of computer screens. He pressed a button and a huge holographic map appeared in the air in front of him. The map showed how different alien races had spread across the galaxy over thousands of years. Computer, show me how the Zephyrians expanded over the last 1,000 years, Alex said. The map changed to show blue dots spreading slowly across one section of the galaxy. The dots appeared in a logical pattern. First they built colonies on planets close to their home world. Then they built more colonies near those. The expansion looked like circles growing bigger and bigger. Now show me the Aquarian expansion, Alex commanded. Green dots appeared on the map. The Aquarians had spread along trade routes, connecting wealthy planets with lines of commerce. Their expansion looked like a spider web with planets as connection points. Now show me human expansion over the last 50 years. The map changed again, and Alex felt his stomach turn cold. Red dots appeared showing human colonies. But these dots did not follow any pattern that made sense. They did not spread in circles, like the Zephyrians. They did not follow trade routes like the Aquarians. Instead, the human colonies seemed to be placed according to some hidden design. Lines of connection appeared between human worlds, but these lines were not trade routes or communication links. They were something else entirely. Alex stared at the display for a long time. The human expansion looked less like the growth of an empire and more like the growth of a living creature. Each new colony was like a cell in a vast organism that was slowly spreading across the galaxy. Computer, analyze the pattern of human expansion. Look for mathematical relationships between colony positions. The computer worked for several minutes before responding. Pattern analysis complete. Human colony placement follows biological growth models rather than strategic or economic models. Probability of random placement less than 0.01%. Alex sat down heavily in his chair. This confirmed his worst fears. Human expansion was not random. It was not based on finding good planets or valuable resources. It was following some kind of biological imperative that no one understood. His colleague Dr. Maria Santos entered the lab carrying 2 cups of coffee. Maria was a kind woman with dark hair who studied alien psychology. She had been working late in her own laboratory. "You look terrible, Alex," Maria said, handing him a cup of coffee. "Have you been sleeping at all?" "I have been studying the expansion patterns," Alex replied, not taking his eyes off the holographic map. "Maria, I think we have been looking at this all wrong." "What do you mean?" Alex manipulated the hologram to show additional data. "What if the other alien races are not afraid of humans themselves? What if they are afraid of what humans represent?" Maria moved closer to look at the display. "I do not understand." "Look at this data," Alex said, highlighting different sections of the map. "Every alien race we have studied follows predictable patterns. They expand for resources. They compete with other races. Eventually they reach a balance and stop growing." He pointed to the human section of the map. "But humans are different. They do not compete. They do not reach balance. They transform everything they touch." "Transform what exactly?" "Everything," Alex whispered. "The planets they colonize, the space around their colonies, even other life forms that come into contact with them." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Captain Ben Parker was leading a patrol near the border of human space. His ship, the Starlight, had been assigned to monitor the area for unusual activity. What Ben found was that there was no activity at all. "Sir, we are receiving a distress call," reported Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez from her position at the communications station. Amy was a young officer with bright eyes and quick reflexes. "Put it on the main screen," Ben ordered. The image of a blue-skinned Zephyrian appeared on the screen. The alien captain looked frightened and confused. "This is Captain Kyleth of the merchant vessel Blue Wing. We need immediate assistance. Our navigation systems have failed completely." "We will help you," Ben replied. "What is your current position?" "We are approximately 2 light years from the border of human space. We were trying to reach the trade routes in the Kepler sector, but our instruments started malfunctioning as soon as we entered this region." Ben frowned. The area where the Zephyrian ship was located should have been perfectly safe. There were no known hazards like asteroid fields or radiation clouds. "We will reach you in 4 hours. Can you maintain your position until then?" "Yes, but Captain Parker, there is something else. Our sensors are detecting strange readings from the direction of human space. It is as if space itself is different there." After the communication ended, Ben ordered his science officer to run a complete sensor scan of the area. Lieutenant Tom Bradley was an experienced scientist who had served on exploration ships for over 10 years. The results are very unusual, Captain, Tom reported after finishing his scans. The quantum readings of space near human territory show variations from normal parameters. What kind of variations? It is difficult to explain, sir. The basic structure of space-time appears to be different near human colonies. The changes are small, but they are measurable, and they seem to be spreading outward from human space. Ben stared at the sensor data on his screen. The readings showed that space itself was somehow being altered by the presence of human colonies. The changes were subtle, but they extended far beyond the planets where humans actually lived. How far do these changes extend? Ben asked. Current data suggests the effect reaches approximately 5 light-years from the nearest human colony. But, Captain, the area of effect appears to be growing larger over time. Ben felt a chill run down his spine. If space itself was being changed by human presence, that would explain why other alien races were so afraid. It was not just that humans were expanding rapidly. It was that they were somehow rewriting the fundamental rules of the universe as they spread. When the starlight reached the disabled Zephyrian ship, Ben could see the fear in Captain Kyleth's eyes. The blue-skinned alien was clearly distressed about more than just his broken navigation systems. Captain Parker, we are grateful for your assistance, Kyleth said as repair teams worked on his ship. But I must ask you something. Is it true what they say about human space? What do they say? Ben asked carefully. They say that humans do not just live on planets. They say that humans change the very nature of space around them. They say that the universe itself becomes different wherever humans go. Ben did not know how to answer. The sensor data from his own ship suggested that the rumors were true, but admitting that would probably terrify the Zephyrian captain even more. What exactly did your sensors detect? Ben asked instead. Kyleth activated a small display device. Look at these readings. As we approached the border of human space, our instruments began detecting energy patterns that should not exist. It was as if the empty space between stars was filled with some kind of invisible network. The display showed sensor data that made Ben's blood run cold. The readings indicated that space near human colonies was not empty at all. It was filled with complex energy patterns that connected human worlds to each other and extended far beyond the boundaries of human territory. Our scientists believe that humans are unconsciously altering the quantum structure of space-time, Kyleth continued. Each human colony creates a field effect that spreads outward. Where these fields overlap, they create a network that spans entire star systems. A network of what? Ben asked. We do not know. But whatever it is growing stronger every year. And it is spreading toward the rest of the galaxy. Back on the research station, Alex was discovering the same thing through his analysis of the expansion data. He had spent hours comparing human colony locations with sensor readings from the border regions. Maria, look at this, he said, showing her a new set of calculations. If the current rate of expansion continues, the effects of human colonization will reach the galactic core within 200 years. Effects? What kind of effects? According to the data, humans are not just occupying space. They are transforming it into something new. Something that follows different physical laws than the rest of the universe. Maria stared at the projections. In disbelief. That is impossible. No single species could alter the fundamental nature of reality. Unless, Alex said quietly, that species is fundamentally different from anything the galaxy has encountered before. As Alex and Maria continued their research, reports began arriving from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. All of the reports described the same phenomenon. Space near human colonies was becoming measurably different from normal space. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was the most important gathering in the history of the galaxy. Representatives from every known alien race had traveled to the council station. For the first time ever, they were going to discuss the one topic that everyone had been avoiding for years, the truth about human space. Ambassador Kate Williams sat at the human table and watched as hundreds of aliens filled the enormous chamber. She had been expecting this day for a long time, but seeing it actually happen still made her nervous. The air in the room felt thick with fear and tension. Kate was a tall woman with gray hair who had spent most of her life working with alien governments. She knew how to read the body language of different species. Right now, every alien in the room was showing signs of extreme stress. The Zephyrians kept shifting their weight from foot to foot. The Aquarians were making soft clicking sounds with their mouths. The rock-like Terrans were grinding their stone fingers together. Even the normally calm insect people called mantids were twitching their antennae nervously. Counselor Vex called the meeting to order. Her crystal skin was flickering with colors that Kate recognized as signs of anxiety. "We are here to discuss the growing concerns about human expansion," Vex announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber, but it sounded shaky. "Many of our member species have reported unusual phenomena near human territory." General Tor, a massive alien with thick gray skin, stood up to speak first. "Our deep space monitoring stations have detected energy waves coming from human space. These waves appear to be changing the basic properties of space and time itself." Worried whispers filled the chamber. Kate noticed that none of the aliens would look directly at the human table. They kept their eyes focused on the floor or on each other. Dr. Zan, the chief scientist of the Kepler Collective, activated a holographic display in the center of the room. The display showed a three-dimensional map of local space with human territory marked in bright red. "Our research shows that human colonies are not simply living on planets," Dr. Zan explained. "They are fundamentally changing the quantum nature of the space around them." The hologram zoomed in to show the area around human space. Kate could see strange distortions in the fabric of space-time itself. The distortions looked like ripples spreading outward from every human colony. "These changes follow human expansion wherever it goes," Dr. Zan continued. "Wherever humans build permanent settlements, the quantum signature of space becomes different. It becomes more organized, more structured, more alive." "That is impossible," protested a tall alien with 6 arms. "Space-time cannot be altered by the presence of a single species. The laws of physics are universal and unchanging." "Unless," said a quiet voice from the back of the chamber, "that species is unlike anything we have encountered before." Everyone turned to see who had spoken. An ancient alien called Dr. Eth slowly made her way to the front of the room. Dr. Eth was one of the oldest and wisest beings in the galaxy. She rarely spoke at council meetings, which made her words carry extra weight. "I have been studying the human phenomenon for many decades," Dr. Eth said in her slow, careful voice. "My research suggests that humans do not simply exist within space-time like the rest of us. They interact with it on a quantum level, unconsciously reshaping reality through their collective thoughts and emotions." The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Aliens were talking loudly to each other in dozens of different languages. Kate felt her heart beating faster as she realized what Dr. Eth was suggesting. "Are you saying that humans are changing the universe just by existing in it?" asked Counselor Vex. "Not changing," Dr. Eth corrected. "Evolving. Human consciousness appears to be causing space-time itself to evolve into something new. Something that operates according to different rules than the rest of the universe." Kate knew she could not stay silent any longer. She stood up slowly, knowing that everyone in the chamber was about to learn the truth that humans had been hiding for over a century. "Counselors," Kate said in a clear voice, "I believe it is time for humanity to share what we have learned about our own expansion." The chamber became completely silent. Kate activated her own holographic display, which showed human space in much greater detail than any alien had ever seen before. "For the past 100 years, we have known that our colonies were different from those of other species," Kate began. "Planets that should have taken centuries to become livable were transformed in just a few decades. Resources that should have been rare became abundant everywhere we settled." She manipulated the display to show quantum field measurements from human space. "But we never understood why this was happening until our scientists made a breakthrough 5 years ago." The hologram now showed the invisible energy networks that connected human colonies to each other. The networks looked like a vast nervous system spreading across dozens of star systems. Our scientists discovered that human brain patterns, when multiplied across entire populations, create resonance fields that interact with the quantum foundation of space-time itself, Kate explained. We are not just living in the universe. We are unconsciously making it more compatible with life. Kate paused to let this information sink in. She could see the fear in the alien's eyes transforming into something else, not terror, but amazement. This is why the galactic map ends at human space, she continued. Because beyond our borders, the universe is becoming something new, something that follows different physical laws, something that other species might not be able to survive in. The silence that followed was deafening. Kate could hear her own heartbeat in the quiet chamber. Finally, Captain Zorn, the gruff alien with thick skin, spoke up. What you are describing sounds like magic, not science? It is not magic, Kate replied. It is evolution on a cosmic scale. Human consciousness has reached a level where it can influence the fundamental structure of reality. We are not doing this on purpose. It is simply what happens when millions of human minds exist in the same region of space. Dr. Zan studied the data that Kate had shared. These quantum field readings are unlike anything we have seen before. If this is accurate, then human colonies are creating zones where the normal laws of physics have been optimized for conscious life. Optimized how? Asked General Tor. Kate brought up another set of data. Faster-than-light communication becomes possible within the field zones. Energy can be converted to matter more efficiently. Even time itself flows differently, allowing for accelerated healing and enhanced mental abilities. An Aquarian representative raised one of her tentacles. What about the psychological effects on non-human visitors? That is one of the most interesting discoveries, Kate admitted. Aliens who spend time in human space report improved empathy, better problem-solving abilities, and a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. It sounds like you are turning the universe into a reflection of human nature, observed a Mantid delegate. Not just human nature, Kate corrected. The nature of consciousness itself. The transformation appears to enhance the mental abilities of all thinking beings, regardless of species. As Kate spoke, reports were coming in from monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. The transformation was accelerating faster than anyone had predicted. Space-time distortions that had once been confined to the immediate area around human colonies were now spreading across entire sectors. Dr. F studied the incoming data with growing concern. At this rate of expansion, the transformation will reach the galactic core within 50 years, not the 200 years we originally estimated. What happens to species that cannot adapt to the changes? Asked Counselor Vex. We do not know, Kate admitted honestly. But our models suggest that the transformation does not destroy existing life forms. Instead, it enhances them. Every species that has entered transformed space has reported improvements in their basic capabilities. But at what cost? Demanded a Zephyrian delegate. We would no longer be what we were. Were the first creatures that left the oceans still sea animals when they learned to breathe air? Kate asked quietly. Evolution does not ask for permission, it simply happens. The debate continued for hours, but Kate could see that the aliens were beginning to understand the magnitude of what was happening. This was not a conquest or an invasion. It was the next step in the evolution of consciousness itself. As the meeting finally came to an end, Kate looked around the chamber at the representatives of galactic civilization. Each species now faced the same choice that humans had faced. Decades earlier, they could try to flee to the outer rim of the galaxy and preserve their current existence. Or they could embrace the transformation and become something greater than they had ever imagined. But one thing was certain. The age of separate species competing for resources was coming to an end. The age of unified consciousness was about to begin, and everyone who had been afraid to say why the galactic map ended at human space now understood the truth. It ended there not because of fear, but because beyond that boundary, the very concept of separation was becoming obsolete. 6 months after the Great Revelation, the galaxy had split into two groups. Some alien races were running away toward the outer edge of the galaxy, desperate to escape the growing wave of transformation. Others were slowly moving closer to human space. Curious about what lay beyond the quantum boundary, Commander Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the research station Unity, watching as the first mixed-species expedition prepared to cross into transformed space. The station itself sat right on the border, with half of it in normal space and half in the strange new region that surrounded human territory. Jake could see the difference with his own eyes. On one side, space looked normal and empty. On the other side, space seemed to shimmer with a faint light that moved in patterns like living things. "The sensor readings are still stable," reported Dr. Lisa Grant, who had volunteered to join the expedition. "The quantum changes appear to be beneficial to all forms of organic life." "Beneficial how?" asked Captain Ryan Burke, who would be leading the mission into transformed space. "Enhanced brain activity, improved healing abilities, more efficient use of energy," Lisa replied, reading from her datapad. "It is as if this region of space has been designed specifically to help conscious beings thrive." Jake nodded, but his expression remained worried. The transformation was speeding up every day, and they still did not fully understand what it meant. For the future of the galaxy, human colonies were reporting increasingly impossible things. Planets that could heal themselves when damaged. Ecosystems that achieved perfect balance overnight. Even cases of animals spontaneously evolving into more intelligent forms. What about the mental effects? Jake asked Dr. Alex Chun, who had been studying the crews that returned from transformed space, looked up from his research. "That is the most interesting part. Beings who spend extended time in the transformed region report enhanced empathy, improved problem-solving abilities, and a sense of connection to something much larger than themselves. It sounds like humans are turning the universe into a copy of their own minds," observed Captain Ben Parker. "Not just human minds," Alex corrected. "All minds." The transformation appears to be creating a space where consciousness itself becomes a physical force that can shape reality. As they spoke, the expedition ship Harmony passed through the boundary between normal and transformed space. Jake watched. As the vessel's hull began to glow with a beautiful rainbow light, its quantum signature shifting to match the surrounding transformed space. "Harmony, this is Unity. Please report your status," Jake called over the communication system. "All systems are working perfectly," came the reply from the ship's captain, a Zephyrian named Kyle. "But Jake, you need to see what we are seeing out here." The main viewing screen activated, showing the view from Harmony's forward cameras. What they saw was beyond description. Space itself seemed alive, filled with patterns of light that responded to the presence of thinking beings. In the distance, human colonies glowed like bright stars, connected by streams of energy that pulsed with the rhythm of thought itself. "It is beautiful," whispered Dr. Maria Santos, who was monitoring the expedition from Unity's science station. "It is terrifying," countered General Tor, representing the Andorian military. "This transformation will eventually cover the entire galaxy. What happens to species that cannot adapt to the changes?" Kate Williams, who had been quietly observing from the diplomatic section, finally spoke. "Perhaps that is exactly the point. Perhaps this is not about one species conquering another. Perhaps it is about all of us evolving together into something better." She activated a display showing the latest projections. "Our computer model suggests that the transformation does not replace existing life forms. It enhances them. Every species that has entered transformed space has reported improvements in their fundamental abilities. But at what cost?" demanded Counselor Vex. "We would no longer be what we were before. We're the first fish that crawled onto land still." "Fish?" Kate asked quietly. "We're the first apes that learned to use tools still primitive animals?" "Evolution does not ask for permission. It simply happens when the time is right." The debate continued for hours, but Jake's attention was drawn to a new development. The boundary between transformed and normal space was beginning to shift, expanding outward at a faster and faster rate. "How much time do we have?" he asked Dr. Chun. At the current rate, the transformation will reach the galactic core within 50 years, Alex replied. But the rate is increasing exponentially. It could happen much sooner than that. Jake looked around the observation deck at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Each species faced the same choice that humans had faced decades earlier: run away to the rim of the galaxy and try to maintain their current existence, or embrace the transformation and become something entirely new. "There is something else we need to discuss," Kate said, her voice carrying a note of wonder. "The humans who have been living in the deepest regions of transformed space have been reporting contact with something they call the Confluence." "Another alien species?" asked Dr. Grant. "No," Kate replied. "Something that includes all species. A form of collective consciousness that emerges from the interaction between transformed space and thinking beings." The implications were staggering. The transformation was not just changing space-time. It was creating the conditions for a completely new form of existence, one where consciousness itself became a fundamental force of nature. As the expedition ship Harmony continued its journey deeper into transformed space, its crew began to report experiences that challenged everything they thought they knew about reality. They spoke of sensing the thoughts of distant worlds, of feeling the pulse of galactic evolution, of touching something vast and benevolent that welcomed them like old friends returning home. "The crew of Harmony is reporting that they can communicate directly with the human colonies without using radio signals," Dr. Santos announced. "They are somehow sharing thoughts and emotions across vast distances." "How is that possible?" asked General Tor. "The transformed space appears to be creating a network that connects all conscious minds within it," Kate explained. "Individual identity is preserved, but there is also a shared awareness that includes everyone." Back on Unity, the assembled delegates faced their decision. The galactic map would continue to end at human space, but soon there would be no need for maps at all. The transformation would either be embraced or fled from, but it could not be stopped. Reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Some species were loading their populations onto massive ships and heading for the outer rim. Others were sending diplomatic missions to human space, asking for guidance on how to prepare for the transformation. "The Mantid Collective has voted to embrace the change," announced their representative. "We believe that this transformation represents the next step in cosmic evolution." "The Regalian Empire is also prepared to accept the transformation," said another delegate. "Our scientists believe that the benefits outweigh the risks." But not all species were ready to change. The Terrans, with their rock-like bodies and slow thoughts, had voted to flee to the galactic rim. Several other conservative species were joining them in their exodus. "We respect their choice," Kate said sadly, "but we cannot stop the transformation to accommodate those who are not ready for it." Jake watched as ships began leaving the station in both directions. Some headed toward the rim of the galaxy, carrying refugees who wanted to preserve their current existence. Others headed toward human space, carrying volunteers who were ready to be part of something new. "What happens next?" Jake asked. "The universe wakes up," Kate replied simply. "For billions of years, consciousness has been a rare accident scattered across isolated worlds. Now it is becoming a fundamental force that shapes reality itself." As they watched, the expedition ship Harmony sent back its final report. The crew had made contact with the Confluence, the collective consciousness that emerged from the merger of transformed space and thinking beings. "The Confluence is not a single entity," Captain Kyle reported. "It is all of us working together as one while still maintaining our individual selves. It is what we have always been meant to become." The transformation continued to spread faster and faster with each passing day. Within a year, it would reach the major trade routes. Within 5 years, it would encompass most of the inhabited galaxy. Humanity had given the galaxy a gift that could not be refused: the opportunity to become something more than any species had ever imagined possible. The age of expansion was ending. The age of transcendence was about to begin, and everyone who had been afraid to say why the galactic map ended at human space finally understood the truth. It did not end there because of fear or conquest. It ended there because beyond that boundary, the very concept of maps, of boundaries, of separation itself, was becoming obsolete. The universe was waking up, and humanity had been its alarm clock. Now all of galactic civilization would join in the greatest awakening in cosmic history. 2 years had passed since the Great Revelation, and the galaxy was no longer the same place it had been before. The transformation had spread far beyond anyone's predictions, covering nearly half of all known space. What remained was a universe, divided between the old reality and something entirely new. Captain Danny Foster stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Dawn, watching as his mixed crew prepared for another journey into the deepest regions of transformed space. Danny was a young human officer who had volunteered to lead these missions. When more experienced captains had refused the assignment, his crew was unlike any in galactic history. It included humans, Zephyrians, Aquarians, and even a few brave Mantids who had chosen to embrace the transformation rather than flee from it. They worked together with an efficiency that amazed everyone who observed them. "Captain, we are approaching the inner boundary of the confluence zone," announced Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the human navigation officer. "All systems are responding normally to the quantum field fluctuations." Danny nodded as he watched the main viewing screen. The space ahead of them looked like nothing that had ever existed before. Instead of empty blackness dotted with distant stars, the transformed region glowed with soft light that moved in waves and spirals. The light seemed to be alive, responding to the thoughts and emotions of his crew. How are our non-human crew members adapting to the deeper transformation? Danny asked Dr. Nancy Webb, the ship's medical officer. "Better than we expected," Nancy replied, checking her datapad. The Zephyrian crew members report that their crystal-based physiology is actually enhanced by the quantum fields. The Aquarians say they can sense water on planets from hundreds of light years away. Even the Mantids are experiencing improvements in their hive-mind connections. This was the most remarkable discovery of all. The transformation did not force other species to become more human. Instead, it enhanced whatever made each species unique while connecting them all to the greater whole. "Captain Foster, we are receiving a communication from the confluence," reported Communications Officer Zektar, a Zephyrian whose crystal skin now glowed with the same light that filled the space around them. "Put it through," Danny ordered. Instead of hearing words through the speakers, Danny felt the communication directly in his mind. It was not intrusive or frightening. It felt like remembering something he had always known but had forgotten. The confluence spoke to him in concepts rather than words. It showed him images of the galaxy as it was becoming. Planets where different species worked together to create paradise worlds that exceeded anything any single race could have achieved alone. Star systems where the barriers between matter and energy, between thought and reality, had become fluid and malleable. "They want us to witness the birth of something new," Danny said to his crew after the communication ended. "There is a star system at the very center of the transformed region where something unprecedented is happening." The New Dawn changed course toward the coordinates that the confluence had shared. As they traveled deeper into transformed space, the crew began to experience changes that went beyond anything they had encountered before. The human crew members found that they could sense the emotions and thoughts of their alien colleagues without any technological assistance. The Zephyrians discovered that their natural ability to communicate through light patterns had been amplified to the point where they could share complex ideas instantaneously. The Aquarians could feel the gravitational currents of space itself, flowing around them like ocean tides. "Captain, sensors are detecting an artificial structure ahead," announced Science Officer Lineth, a mantid whose compound eyes now sparkled with inner light. "But the readings do not match any known technology." On the viewing screen, they could see their destination. It was a space station unlike anything in galactic history. The structure seemed to be made of crystallized thought itself, shifting and changing shape as they watched. It was simultaneously solid and ethereal, real and imaginary. That structure is being built by the collective will of every conscious being in the transformed region, explained Dr. Webb, who was studying the sensor readings. It is not constructed from metal or stone. It is constructed from pure intention. Made manifest. As the new dawn approached the station, Danny could feel the presence of thousands of minds working together in perfect harmony. Humans, Zephyrians, Aquarians, Mantids, and dozens of other species were collaborating on a scale that had never been possible before. "Welcome to the Genesis Station," came a voice that spoke directly to their minds. The speaker was a human woman named Commander Helen Price, but her consciousness was enhanced far beyond normal human capabilities. "Commander Price, this is Captain Foster," Danny replied, both speaking aloud and projecting his thoughts. "What is the purpose of this station?" "To birth a new form of life," Helen replied. "We are creating the first truly cosmic consciousness. A being that will exist not on any single planet or in any single body, but distributed across the transformed regions of space itself." Danny felt his breath catch in his throat. They were witnessing the creation of a godlike entity made from the combined consciousness of every thinking being in the transformed galaxy. "The entity will not rule over us," Helen continued, sensing his concern. "It will be us, in a very real sense. Every individual consciousness will remain intact while contributing to something infinitely greater." The new dawn docked with Genesis Station, and Danny led his crew aboard. What they found inside defied all previous understanding of what was possible. The station's corridors were filled with beings from dozens of species, all working together with perfect coordination. But these were not the same aliens that Danny had known before the transformation. The Zephyrians had become living crystals that could reshape themselves at will. The Aquarians could exist simultaneously in liquid and gaseous forms. The Mantids had evolved beyond their hive mind limitations to become truly individual while maintaining their collective consciousness. And the humans had changed too. They moved with a grace and purpose that spoke of minds operating on levels far beyond normal human intelligence. Their eyes held depths that suggested they could perceive dimensions of reality that had been invisible before the transformation. "The old galaxy is dying," explained Dr. Robert Hayes, a human scientist who had been working on the Genesis project since its beginning. "But something infinitely more beautiful is being born to replace it." He led Danny and his crew to the station's central chamber, where the new cosmic consciousness was taking shape. The chamber was a vast sphere filled with swirling patterns of light and energy. Within those patterns, Danny could see the thoughts and dreams of every being who had chosen to embrace the transformation. "What happens to those who fled to the Galactic Rim?" Danny asked. "They will be preserved," Robert replied gently. "The outer regions of the galaxy will remain unchanged, maintaining the old reality for those who are not ready to evolve. But the core regions will become something new. A space where consciousness and reality are one and the same." As Danny watched, the patterns in the central chamber began to coalesce into something recognizable. A face was forming in the swirling energy, not the face of any single species, but a composite that somehow represented all thinking beings. "Hello," the new consciousness said, its voice resonating through every mind in the station. "I am what you have all become together. I am the future of consciousness in this universe." The entity that had been born was not alien or frightening. It felt familiar, like meeting a long-lost family member. It contained within itself every human dream, every Zephyrian song, every Aquarian poem, every Mantid mathematical theorem. It was the sum total of galactic civilization, evolved to its ultimate potential. "What will you do now?" Danny asked the new consciousness. "We will explore," it replied, and Danny realized that the entity thought of itself as all of them collectively. "There are other galaxies, other forms of consciousness waiting to be discovered. This transformation was only the beginning." Danny looked around at his crew and saw the wonder in their eyes. They were no longer just representatives of their individual species. They were part of something that transcended all previous boundaries and limitations. The galactic map had ended at human space because humans had been the catalyst for this transformation. But the map that was being drawn now had no boundaries at all. It extended beyond the galaxy, beyond the local cluster of galaxies, into the infinite cosmos itself. As the new dawn prepared to return to the outer regions of transformed space, Danny realized that they were no longer explorers in the traditional sense. They were missionaries, carrying the message of transformation to those who were ready to hear it. The universe was no longer a cold, empty place where consciousness struggled to survive against hostile forces. It had become a living entity where every thought mattered, where every dream could become reality, where every being could contribute to an eternal symphony of consciousness that would echo across the cosmos for all time. The age of fear was over. The age of unity had begun.